Part 11 of my Inspiration series, which is the final part of the series and features P4 and OO9 layouts. In my last video I described 18mm EM gauge layouts and said that EM gauge is approximately 4mm to the foot. However, for some modelers 18mm gauge is not accurate enough, and so Scalefour P4 was developed. This has an accurate scale standard of 18.83mm that uses correctly profiled wheels. A lot of modelers build kit locos. However, ready-to-run locos and rolling stock can be run with modified wheel sets. Plain track can be bought, but point work is do-it-yourself with some point kits available. Apart from P4 layouts, this video also features OO9 layouts. OO9 models narrow gauge railways combining 4mm scale and 9mm N gauge track. Whilst not as precise as the P4 scale, the use of standard N gauge track to represent 2-foot narrow gauge means that differences are barely perceptible. Hi, I'm Andrew Gebby. You're watching the Heritage and Model Rail channel. And if this is the first time to this channel, become a subscriber. And don't forget the bell icon so that you can be notified when new content appears. Hey Sidings, modelled in scale 4 gauge and presented by Chris Goff. Hey Sidings is set in East Devon during the summer of 1930 and is a model of the Sidmouth branch of the Southern Railway. It imagines that a couple of rural industries have sprung up on the banks of the River Otter at Hey, and a new set of sidings has been put in close to the Hey crossing gates. The crossing box has accordingly been upgraded and the signalling adjusted to facilitate the additional traffic using second-hand LSWR apparatus. Regular local passenger workings run along the single line between Sidmouth Junction on the main West of England line and the resorts of Sidmouth and Exmouth. The branch splits south of Hey. The layout was run as a fixed timetable controlled by a clock set above the track. Signalling bells were used by the operators to control the flow of traffic. This P4 Scale 4 layout is Boston Fraudsham, exhibited by Mike Knowles. Boston Fraudsham is an end-to-end layout measuring 16 feet by 2 foot 6, set in the 1975 to 1985 era. It is partly based on the swing bridge at Boston Docks and the wharf in Fraudsham in Cheshire. Inspiration for modelling the swing bridge came from a 2005 issue of Traction magazine. Several pictures of the wharf at Fraudsham show an RB22 crane which has been modelled. Track is C&L Finescale, powered from a Lens DCC system with all locos sound fitted. Points are activated by Tortoise slow motion motors. They are controlled from a lever frame built from a Scalefour Society kit. Operation of the layout assumes that trains approach the docks via a branch from the main line and enter reception departure sidings. Since the mainline locos are too heavy for the swing bridge, they uncouple and move forward to the stabling point. The O3 and O8 shunters then move wagons a few at a time over the swing bridge into the dockside area, returning with other wagons for dispatch. The mainline loco runs around to enable it to depart with the outgoing train. Motive power consists of an O3 and O8 shunter combination permanently coupled to each other. The O3 incorporates a detailed backman body on a high-level kit's chassis and is powered. The O8 is a modified and detailed backman with the motor and gears removed to make room for a sound decoder and decent speaker. Mainline locos are a Class 25, Class 37 and a Class 31, modified with pen bits sprung bogies.
My name is Ray Knowlton, a lifelong model railway enthusiast. I'm a member of the East of Scotland 4mm group, which is an area group of the Scalefour Society. Our main layout, which you may have heard of, is Burnt Island 1883, but we have a variety of other layouts owned by individuals, and we often exhibit as the East of Scotland 4mm group, and in fact that's why we're here today at St Andrews. And this is my layout, United Mills, which is built to P4 standards. It's what they call a cameo layout, in that it represents a small scene, in this case an industrial scene, of a mill somewhere in the Kelty Cowdenbeath area. The layout is fairly simple, consists of 2 turnouts and a fiddle yard at either end. It represents a foundry metalworking facility coming towards the end of its life. The reason it's kept its rail connection is because of the poor road connections. Traffic is worked by BR locos and also by United Mills locos, and features a variety of traffic. The layout is DC, very simple. The turnouts are operated by hand-operated Blue Point units underneath the baseboard. The track has 1 single feed, set of isolators. The uncouplers are electromagnets, and the couplings themselves are Alex Jackson couplings, which are used quite frequently by members of the Scalefour Society, which allows automatic uncoupling wherever you've fitted a magnet. The trackside buildings are mostly scratch built, and in fact the layout was inherited in a modern image style from a gentleman in Edinburgh, and I got it as a bare board with just the track and 2 of the buildings, and the rest of the scenery I've done myself. The main mill building is based on a building that still exists, the old granary in Duns. The layout is set somewhere between late 50s and early 60s. The back scene it looks very similar to the Lomond Hills, although in fact it's the Brecon Beacons just behind Hereford, but it is very, very similar to what you would see if you're driving up the M90.
This P4 layout is Shelving Ttan and Rides Hill, exhibited by Matt Farrell and Lee Polson. This 4mm scale P4 gauge terminus layout models BR's southern region in the late 1970s and early 1980s, when the BR blue and grey were the dominant rolling stock colours. Shelving Ttan and Rides Hill is set in West Surrey at the end of an electric line branching off the Portsmouth direct line from Worplesdon. There is a diesel-only branch back to Guildford, completing the 3rd leg of the triangle, though this was reduced to a single track in the 1950s. The layout uses digital command control and includes a number of sound-fitted DEMUs. The rolling stock is typical of the area and the period and covers Class 205, 206, Tadpole and 207 thumper units, as well as a mixture of EMUs working on the electrified line. There are also Class 33s and 73s working push-pull and engineering trains together with rail tours and test workings. This P4 gauge layout is Farringdon, exhibited by Rex Davidson and Stephen Williams. The layout is a scale model of the former GWR branch station at Farringdon in Oxfordshire and is entirely hand-built. The model depicts the station as it might have appeared during the transition from GWR to British Rail in the period 1947 to 1955. As was typical of minor routes in this period, the buildings retained the GWR colours, whilst engines and stock carried the new liveries of the nationalised railway. Passenger services at the real Farringdon were never more than a shuttle service to the junction of Uffington, which ceased in 1951. Modeller's licence has been used to extend the time frame to show a more varied range of typical branch line trains of the period. In addition to the pannier tank with its curious concertina coach that ran on the real Farringdon branch, there are large and small prairie tanks on imagined local services from Swindon and Didcot, as well as accolade goods on branch freight trains. The layout measures 18 feet by 3 feet, across 4 boards, plus 1 fiddle yard. Buildings are scratch built from card painted with watercolours. Track work is all handmade using riveted wooden sleepers. Control is DC using a controller developed by Stuart Hines in the 1980s and is now quite rare. Locomotives in stock include converted items of ready-to-run stock together with good quality kits. My thanks to Stephen for the information. Rolleenden is a Colonel Stevens light railway. It is modelled in P4 and it represents the station of that name on the Kent and East Sussex Railway in the mid-1920s. Using plans, drawings and photos, John has done his best to accurately represent the site within the constraints of the space available. Outside of the station limits, John has used modeller's license to bring some typical Kentish scenes, such as an oast house, a hop garden and a windmill to the layout. The layout and all the stock are John's own work and represent around 20 years' work. Many of the trains run as mixed, putting off and shunting the sidings on their way through. The trains run from a cassette storage fiddle yard at the Roberts Bridge end through to an automatic turntable at the headcorn end. Having a Lie-In, modelled in OO9 gauge and presented by Andy Bailey. The layout has Welsh origins, hence the name, although you will realise the name isn't Welsh if you say it the English way. The grounds of the ruined castle on the hill now belong to the local golf club, who have constructed a very scenic golf course. The pier is of timber construction with each upright individually screwed into place. Most of the buildings are scratch built in linker and plasticard. 2 of the roofs are genuine hand-cut Welsh slate and 3 roofs are thatched with plumber's hemp in Pendon style. The sea is literally dozens of coats of non-drip varnish on a mixture of sand and ballast. The beach is real sand from our local sand quarry and is about 20mm deep. There are over 200 figures on the layout. The track is Pico Crazy Track with seep electrics and ballasted with a mixture of granite, limestone and sand. Most of the stock is kit built with a few scratch built items.
This is my layout Purbeck, which is a layout which represents the ball clay industry of the Isle of Purbeck in Dorset. The line was used for transporting ball clay and survived until about 1970. All the stock is scratch built, engines, wagons, coaches, etc., and buildings. And the idea of the layout was to represent the ball clay industry, which is mining, weathering and then processing the clay, but at the same time extend the layout so that we could run a range of narrow gauge items on the line. There are a number of prototypical items that we use on the layout, such as models of the original engines, models of the original wagons. There's a model of the original foreman's hut. So mixed with authenticity is a little bit of whimsy.
This OO9 scale layout is Ronnie Bog, exhibited by David and Rob Waller. Ronnie Bog is a model of Bethgelert Station on the rebuilt West Highland Railway, depicted around 2009-2010, when the railway was reopened from Rhyddu through Bethgelert and through the Aberglaslyn Pass to the south. It is more than just a model of Bethgelert Station and encompasses the first of the famous 1 in 40 S-bends climbing away from the north into the Bethgelert forest, and to the south the layout also features Goat Tunnel and the notorious Bridge to Nowhere, a relic of the ill-fated Porthmadog, Bethgelert and South Snowdon Railway. The finished layout is huge by OO9 standards, with trains truly running through the landscape. The station itself with its passing loop is being built to scale, and the platform can accommodate an authentic length rake of 12 carriages behind one of the monster NGG 16s. The layout measures 20 feet by 10 feet across 14 boards and requires 3 operators. All buildings are scratch-built scale representations of rail buildings. Track is Pico with analogue control. Stock is 90% scratch-built with some kits. My thanks to Rob and David for the information. Check out other content that I have by selecting the playlist. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you there.